All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about one of the most important concepts in modern product design, the design system. It's kind of that secret sauce that makes some products feel amazing and others just, well, a bit of a mess.
I mean, think about it for a second. You've definitely used apps that are just a dream. So smooth, everything makes sense, every screen feels familiar. But you've also used ones where it feels like every button is a different size, and the colors are all over the place. What's the real difference there? It's not luck, I can tell you that. It's a system.
Because, you see, without a system, you just get chaos. Your teams end up rebuilding the same exact button like a dozen times. Designers are stuck arguing over which shade of blue is the official one, and the poor user, they're left with a totally confusing and frustrating experience. This is what we call design debt, and man, it just grinds everything to a halt.
So, how do we fight back against this chaos? Well, the answer is a design system. This is the framework that brings order and sanity back into the picture, letting teams build way better products way faster.
A design system is so much more than just a library of buttons and icons. Think of it as a shared language, a single source of truth that gets everyone on the same page, from designers to engineers to product managers. It doesn't just give you the what, the components. It also tells you the why and the how, the core principles and the rules for using them right.
And that brings me to a really important point. A lot of people hear design system and think UI kit. They are not the same thing. A UI kit is just the toolbox, the collection of buttons and stuff. A design system is the toolbox plus the instruction manual, the philosophy, and the culture of how you build things. It's a living, breathing thing that's built to help you scale.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around how these systems work, there's this absolutely brilliant analogy called atomic design. It basically breaks down user interfaces into their smallest possible parts, kind of like how chemistry breaks down matter into atoms. So atomic design gives us 5 clear levels that build on top of each other, starting from the tiniest elements all the way up to a full screen. You've got atoms, molecules, organisms, templates, and pages. For now, we're just going to focus on those first 3, because they're the real foundation of how everything gets put together.
First up, we have atoms. These are the absolute basics, the fundamental building blocks of your entire interface. We're talking about things like labels, input fields, icons, buttons. By themselves, they don't do a whole lot, but they are the bedrock for everything else we're going to build.
Next, we've got molecules. And this is where it starts to get fun. We take those basic atoms and we start combining them into simple functional groups. So for example, you take an input atom and you pair it with a button atom. Boom! You've got a search bar molecule. It actually has a job now.
And from there, we build organisms. By combining a bunch of molecules and maybe some individual atoms, we create these bigger, more complex parts of an interface. Think about a navigation bar, right? It might be made up of a logo atom and a few link molecules. It's its own distinct section. These 3, atoms, molecules, and organisms, they're the real heart of your interface's structure.
Okay, so we've got our building blocks. Awesome. But how do we make sure that everyone on the team uses them the same way? Well, that's where the rules come in. Because consistency doesn't happen by accident. It's something you have to carefully engineer with a very specific set of tools.
These right here are the real workhorses of any good design system. Things like design tokens and component libraries. This is what keeps your designers and your developers perfectly in sync. When a designer in Figma uses the color primary blue, the developer in the code is pulling that exact same value. No more guesswork, no more close enough.
Let's just talk about design tokens for a second, because they are a huge deal. Think of them as tiny little packages of information that hold a design decision. So instead of a developer typing out a specific color code like #3498db, they just use a token called, say, color brand primary. Now, if you ever need to update that brand color, you change it in one single place, the token, and it updates everywhere. It is an absolute game changer for working at scale.
And it's not just about what a button or an input looks like. It's about how it behaves. Ever hovered your mouse over a button and watched it change color? Or clicked into a text field and seen a blue border appear? Those are called states. A really solid component has to account for all of these little interactions. Hover, active, disabled, error, because that's what makes the user experience feel predictable and trustworthy.
Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like a lot of work up front. So why do massive companies like Google, Airbnb, and IBM pour millions of dollars into building and maintaining these systems? Well, it's because the payoff is absolutely enormous.
This is not just some exercise for designers. It is a seriously powerful business tool. Design systems make development so much faster because engineers aren't just rebuilding things from scratch all the time. They slash the number of bugs, they make sure your brand looks consistent everywhere, and they make it possible for dozens of teams to work on the same product without tripping over each other.
But let's be real, building one of these isn't always easy. There are some common traps. A big one is trying to make the system too complicated too early. Another killer is forgetting about documentation. Seriously, a system that isn't documented or kept up to date is a system that's doomed to fail, and you absolutely have to think about accessibility right from day one.
When you really boil it all down, it all comes back to this one idea. Consistency isn't just about making things look nice and tidy. It is a feature. It's a feature that builds trust with your users, it makes your app easier to learn, and it makes your whole product feel stable and reliable. It tells the user, hey, you can count on us. And in the digital world we live in, that trust is everything.
Like, share, and subscribe.